Police officers of Reddit, what are some laws that you feel uncomfortable enforcing because you disagree with them? It's not a specified law as such. But in the UK people can use reasonable force to protect themselves, others and property act. Obviously everyone has their own interpretation of what reasonable force is, but I remember going to one job where a bloke was sat on his couch with a beer watching TV when a drunk bloke has just walked straight into his living room via the front door. A confrontation ensued and the drunk trespasser had become aggressive and a fight ensued. Long story short, the trespasser was given a proper shoe-in. So much so he's ended up in the street where he has then called the police. We attended and his injuries were substantial enough that the house occupant was arrested for grievous bodily harm, GBH, and it most definitely rubbed me up the wrong way in being involved in that job because I totally sympathized with the guy and felt any of us would have probably done the same thing if we were in his position. Arresting homeless people. We usually just bring them in but forget to file paperwork on them. So they get a warm bed, a breakfast, and no record. That is a very nice thing to do. Traffic tickets. I'd pull people over. Give a verbal warning about whatever dumb or unsafe thing they just did. Check for warrants and let them go. I got funny looks for the blank spot in my work card where the tickets were supposed to go. But since it's illegal to officially or unofficially have a quota system, it could never be used against me in my job evaluation. When I was a parking officer, there was an internal policy about not ticketing cars parked in this very wealthy neighborhood even if it was clearly an unsafe violation. They would park their trailers or small boats very close to intersections and that made it dangerous to navigate around there. Because there were too many bigwigs. We could have risked our jobs if we ticketed someone there, so they decided to not have the parking officers enforce it. Edit. Thanks for my first silver kind stranger. Now I wanna address a couple things. 1. My superiors expressed distaste for this policy when telling us about this. So they felt no pleasure this rule. This has more to do with certain elected officials than the police in this case. 2. I know a lot of people want me to leak this. But I have no substantial evidence to leak something so off the books for a local news source. We were only told this verbally once. Plus confidentiality would be a concern due to the small amount of people that are hired for this job and could likely be easily guessed on via process of elimination. Prior to legalization here in Canada, my city 4 years had a marijuana related arrest rate almost 70% lower than the national average. This is in a college town where students make up 20% of the population. So it's not like there wasn't a lot of it in town. There wasn't any policy or directive regarding marijuana issued. It was just a result of all officers personally turning a blind eye to pot unless the citizen was being a jerk. I knew a cop that didn't want kids to get poisoned by marijuana, his words. But didn't want to arrest them. Or give them more trouble or duck up their future if they face that jerk of a judge. So, when he caught them with marijuana, he would just have them throw it away in the gutter. And let them go. Without even taking their name. Most college kids understood that it was a good deal for them. Sure. It's some money DPW in the drain. But you'd walk away as if nothing happened. Others would try to fight him. Or refuse to throw the stuff. And get aggressive toward him. And he had to arrest them. Not so surprisingly. Oftentimes they had a record for more serious crimes. So here is one that bugs me. John leaves the bar feeling okay. Gets in the car and starts to drive home. During the drive he realizes that he's drunker than he thought. Or his back is still ramping up from his last drink. Yes. You can be drunker a half hour after leaving a bar. He makes a decision to not drive the rest of the way home and pulls off the road at a rest stop or a parking lot. Puts the car in park. Turns off the headlights but leaves it running to listen to the radio. Run the heat or AC. Whatever. Moves the seat back and starts sleeping it off a little. Immo at that point he is not driving while intoxicated. He did drive while intoxicated but realized he was impaired and stopped. Maybe a Pythi's obnoxious or was obviously severely impaired. I argued with my instructor about this. The goal is to not have drunks on the road. the drunk got off the road on his own. If we pop those people for DWI, the lesson learned and retold to all of their drunk friends is, if you start to drive drunk, don't stop. Keep driving. All the way home. Of course it's ideal if they Uber or have a DD. Take a cab or public transport, but I'd rather have people who went a little overboard comfortable with the idea of getting off the damned road as soon as they realize it than thinking they have to make it all the way home or get a DWI. Then they hit some family car with a baby in the car seat. Not a cop, but my buddy is. He absolutely hates pulling traffic stops and giving tickets unless the person is doing something super reckless. He thinks for the most part they're useless and add to the community's dislike of police. Not to mention they're statistically pretty dangerous for him. Driving while impaired with resulting grievous injury or death. There's a statute on the books where I works that prohibits any amount of Schedule 1 drugs in your bloodstream while operating a vehicle. Marijuana is still illegal here and is still classed as a Schedule 1 drug by state law. If you are unaware, the byproducts of marijuana use can be detected in your blood weeks after your high has passed. That means that you could legally smoke marijuana in any one of several nearby states where it is completely legal to do so. Wait a few weeks. Come to my atoll state. Get crashed into while stopped at a red light with the other driver completely at fault. Pass the field sobriety test with flying colors. Then get banged for our version of driving while impaired with resulting grievous injury or death. I didn't actually know the marijuana provision of the Passed DWI statute when I joined the county-wide crash team as an evaluator. Someone told me a story about a guy they'd done who'd been completely faultless in an accident wherein 2 people had died and had admitted to smoking marijuana a few weeks earlier. That it formed the basis for a search warrant and he was convicted of the felony based on the blood work. I started advising an impaired, faultless drivers of the marijuana provision. The attorneys told me to stop. So I quit the team. I'm not a cop anymore. But I rarely arrested for personal use marijuana. It's a harmless plant. Selling is a different story. Because most of those dealers are supporting a cartel or a higher crime and I don't agree with that. There was one case where a bunch of guys in my agency would have arrested in a heartbeat. And honestly, by law I was required to investigate. But didn't. A car drove through the back of someone's house because the driver confused the brake and gas pedal. The house that was driven through had a lone marijuana plant in another room, which is a felony in my state, and growers get shit on in my state. I stepped in front of it so the firefighters and others wouldn't notice and raise hell about it. This homeowner was a good ole boy. And a church-going father who worked a nice job and contributed greatly to society. I'm not trying to ruin his family's life over a plant. When I walked out of the house and came back in, the plant was missing. He was probably sheeting bricks the whole time I stood there. Now that I'm not a cop, I thought about leaving a letter in his mailbox telling him I knew about the plant. But I don't want to make him paranoid lol. I got arrested at 19 for a gram of weed up. The cop was a super big dig about it and I got denied multiple good jobs over it. It really affected my life. Specifically a FedEx job where I was hired pending a background check paying $15 an hour with insurance starting. My wife's dad was the manager and they still didn't hire me. I had to work in food service for years. Luckily I'm finally graduating this semester and I paid $2 grand to get the charge off my record. This was 10 years ago, but it still blows my mind how much a misdemeanor could change your life. Especially with weed being legalized now. Ex-police officer here in the US. The two that stand out the most is how much officer discretion is used in each scenario for someone to go to jail. Could be the same person with the same amount of illegal substance. I could destroy the evidence and send them away. Or I could take them to jail. Up to the officer. The second would be the ability to ticket each window as illegal tint instead of one just for the car. Is it illegal to have tinted windows? I bought my car like that, not because of it, and had no idea. Back in my Leo career days, I was always very uncomfortable with using dogs to search for drugs. Yeah, they really can sniff out drugs. But the false positive accuracy is so far out of whack with what should be a legal standard for reasonable suspicion that it's little better than guessing. If a dog hits on 100 cars, and 50% of them have no true guts in them, you just violated the civil rights of 50 people based on what a dog said. Dogs aren't people. You can't interview or cross-examine them in court. Not a police officer, but still technically law enforcement at the time. When I was in the Coast Guard, I did a lot of drug and migrant interdiction down in the Caribbean. Chasing drug smugglers was pretty fun, but interdicting the migrants was always sad. We would usually find Haitians or Cubans, and the Haitians were always much worse off. It was pretty heartbreaking having to send them back after seeing the state they were in, and the state of country they were trying to leave. They would go through such great lengths to leave and we had to stop them. One guy tried to light himself on fire and others would try and injure themselves to try and get us to take them to us healthcare facilities. The only redeeming thing about interdicting them was their ships were always very shoddily made, and oftentimes our act of interdicting them was also us saving them from a sinking ship. Weed laws. Unless you are a distributor, I don't care. Also don't care about doing traffic stops. Last one I did was in March. I had a cop pull me over once while I was stoned and it smelled in the car. It was dumb and a while ago. I know. I honestly haven't since because of this. He walked up to the window and knew instantly. Took me out and separated me and the GF. As is tradition. And we were both honest. After the first I don't know about having anything in the car. A sandwich I made pot peanut butter with. Nothing else. Honestly. He straight looks me in the eye and says, "You were my last stop before lunch. Open the sandwich and put it face down in that until and we can both go on our way." I'm not a police officer. I'm a CPS agent. I'm uncomfortable with allowing children to stay in homes that don't have water and electricity as long as they have a source of water and a place to bathe. Schools and relatives turn to me and say, "Why aren't you helping?" Because I can't. It's the law. I can't imagine being a CPS officer is a simple or easy job. I'm sure you do your best for the kids. Or at least what you are capable of doing. Busting and arresting people for carrying marijuana. Why? Well, because I do enjoy smoking a bit of pot now and then myself. It is arguably a harmless plant. When I am by myself and bust someone, I usually just give a warning or confiscate if they give me attitude. However, oftentimes I am not alone and then I have to arrest. I knew cops be smoking the weed they take off me. Been doing it for a while. Really hate to enforce tinted windows. Just roll them down before I get to your car please. Responsible speeding. And simple A assault when the person had it coming. What I really like to enforce. And I mean LVE to enforce. Handicap parking. Littering. And any traffic infraction I can when the person is being an ass. My friend is a cop in an area with real gang violence and other issues. Chief got up for the daily briefing and told them they needed to prioritize reducing recycling theft, which was homeless people digging through recycle bins to get CRV items. Where I work there is a statute prohibiting leaving your car running unattended. It is called no puffing laws. This is very popular during the winter time because nobody likes to freeze while their car is warming up. However, doing this makes your car more likely to get stolen. It's our policy that if an individual reports their car being stolen because they left it running, they will be ticketed. It basically penalizes the victim of a crime. I am no longer a cop. But when I was, I refused to wait hidden for someone to drive by and give them a ticket. I didn't believe in that. Now please upvote me. A wholesome retard cop. Homelessness. We would get so many calls of transients in certain areas. Most are just laying in the sun on the grass. Not bothering anyone. But all it takes is a phone call from a board commissioner or someone in power and we'd get a call to tell them to move. We all hated it. Seatbelt tickets. I'm sure this is not a popular one. But if you don't like wearing your seatbelt while driving, I could care less. If you want a new face, that's on you. Marijuana. Smoke it all you want. Just don't drive. Fishing license. Enough said. In my college town there were really only 4 bars within walking distance to campus. And they were all notoriously lax on their ID policy. Any fake got you in the door. And sometimes you didn't even need that. But the cops always kept their distance because that meant students were drinking under the regulation of bouncers and bartenders. Which was obviously preferable to the alternative of constantly throwing house parties. Not an officer but criminal defense attorney. Driving while license revoked tickets are an absolute racket in North Carolina and savvy cops have realized they don't care to enforce it. Basically what happens is a lower income person gets a traffic ticket for speeding or whatever. The judge will give them up to 30 days to pay the ticket after the court date. However, because the fines are generally $213 to $263, a lot of lower income people cannot afford to pay the ticket. So, once the time to pay expires, the DMV revokes their license. Then, someone will get pulled over for having a revoked license. At this point, they still have the reason for the revocation outstanding. They have a new, more serious, ticket. And they have to pay reinstatement fees with the DMV to get their license back, assuming they are able to clear up the reason for the revocation. Oh yeah. If you plead guilty to driving while license revoked, your license will be suspended automatically for 1 year for your first offense or even longer if it's not your first offense. Generally, people will not come to me, defense attorney, until they are already charged with driving while license revoked because that is when they realize how screwed they are. The good news is, I have talked to some officers about these driving while license revoked tickets who don't care about the offense, they just want to see the client get their license back. So, they will either tell the DA they don't want it prosecuted or just get it set on a court date when the officer won't be there so I can get it dismissed. It is all about the money. Total ducking racket. My dad was a cop, MP. Specifically, he thought banning radar detectors was dumb. His reasoning was because you are trying to get people to slow down and a speeding ticket was a result of people not slowing down. Ticketing for using a radar detector is just ticketing to give out tickets. As radar detectors make people slow down. Edit, I get it. Guys, I was just answering the question. I didn't say I agreed with it or that my dad really thought it through. Personal marijuana use. Who the duck cares? I'll arrest a dealer. But not users. Course I don't really patrol anymore. I train. Blinkers. Tint. Loud sound systems. I don't care about. Now if you are being a big dick, it is game on for all of those things. Hahaha. Don't be a big dick. I disagree with anything cannabis related. Unless you're in possession of a ton of it and it's obvious they're selling it to who they're not supposed to. If you have personal use, usually I, and the other good cops, usually just confiscate or make the person destroy it themselves in our presence. Also, not a state law. But we have a $500 impound fee that we're forced to enforce on impound related to driving with a suspended revoked license and possession of cannabis. Generally, that means we're taking a vehicle from someone that can't afford to get their license back and holding their vehicle hostage while it accrues more daily fees. 9 times out of 10 these people are decent folks who are just trying to get their kids to school or go to work. There's only a few people on our department who like impounding vehicles under this ordinance because the admin likes it. Everyone else sees it for what it is. A giant money grab. How broad the term family member is when it comes to domestic battery. It could include college roommates. Adult male brothers who don't live together. Like, no. These people are not what people imagine when they think inescapable abusive relationship.